Imagine this. The year is 2013 and your favorite monthly manga is reaching its end. The hero's defeated his rival, had a touching moment with the main love interest, and has completed his goal. You're sad that it's the end, but it's not all tears, as a sequel has been confirmed where the main character will surely return, right? Well, the sequel starts and we learn the previous main character is missing. It's sort of worrying, but it's not that bad as it happens with other stories too. Chapters of the sequel release and you're feeling optimistic, but a nightmare begins as a hiatus is announced. Once again, you try to cope through everything by saying it happens with other series too. Time skips 7 whole years later. With little to no content in between, the story roughly comes to an end. If you didn't know any better, you'd probably be thinking I was talking about Hiatus x Hiatus, but I'm not. Instead, this is a story of the painful 7-year hiatus of the Pokémon manga. Now, that was a bit dramatic and not exactly accurate, but it's pretty much the situation for the Pokémon Adventures Black and White 2 arc, a manga that went through a 7-year long hiatus. To truly understand this story, let's go to the start, in June 2012. At this point, the Pokémon Black and White manga was entering its final quarter of the story, but the games for Pokémon Black and White 2 were being released. And of course, since Pokemon's a game first and manga second, the manga had to promote the games. So we got the first chapter of the Black and White 2 arc, just a little teaser, not revealing any main characters, only a young version of the rival and his backstory. A couple months go by with everything as usual, and by July, Pokémon Adventures Black and White would conclude, in the fashion I mentioned before. Main character Black would fight his rival N, and the two would become friends. Black would then have to battle against Getsus, the true main antagonist, and once again come out victorious. Secondary main character White then appears and has a touching moment with Black, and everything's really all good. The arc would end with N leaving with Zekrom, just like in the games. From what I said, it sounds like everything went well, so how could it all go wrong? Well, our problems begin with the Black and White 2 chapter officially beginning on July 1st, 2013, a year after the games had come out. And we get our new protagonists, member of the International Police, LAC2, and member of the now disbanded Team Plasma, We2. I know these names are atrocious, so I'll just be calling them Blake and Whitley, like in the translations. More importantly than these two newbies, we learn that Black is going to be missing at the start of the arc, and people are understandably confused by this. The guy just saved Unova and won the league, so why is he gone missing? On the bright side, this did happen in the games as well, so maybe it isn't that big of a deal. For the next 4 months, everything proceeds as usual, until October comes around, and if you're a super big Pokemon nerd, or you just have a good memory, you'll know that something else pretty big was happening this month. And that's the release of Pokemon XY, the first games to be in 3D and the first main title games on the Nintendo 3DS. If you remember what I said earlier, then you'll probably guess what's going to happen now, where the manga has to promote the games. But unlike last time where we got a small teaser, this time the team decided that Black and White 2's monthly run would be coming to an end after only 6 chapters, and replacing it would now be the XY arc, thus beginning what the fans would call the Great Hiatus. Now, as you can guess, this is a pretty big problem, as after all, we were just getting introduced to new characters and story, whilst wanting to know what happened to the old ones. All hope isn't lost though, as the arc would continue through a volume release. You may be wondering what that means. Well, let me explain. Typically, mangas are released monthly or weekly, with 1 chapter each time. This means the team behind the manga have a short time to progress the story, so some things get added in the volume release, which gives the team more time to adjust the story and add crucial scenes. With the only downside being, volume releases aren't all that consistent all the time, especially for Pokemon Adventures. Sometimes it will take a month for a volume to come out, and others it will take 2. Speaking of, the final volume of the Black and White arc was about to be released in July, so let's take a look at what changes they decided to make. Yeah, so when they mentioned Black was missing, what they meant to say was that Black got sealed in the Lightstone along with Reshiram. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if we knew when each volume was going to come out, but as I mentioned before with Pokemon, this could be very, very bad. People of course want to find out what happened to Black, but the Black and White 2 chapter has recently started, so we wouldn't be getting any major plot stuff until way later on. And so things went exactly how you would think they would go. And in December 2014, we got our first volume of the Black and White 2 arc, covering the first 6 chapters with some extra content, but still nothing major. So what next? Well, during this time you still have the X and Y chapter, so it's not as bad as say something like Hunter x Hunter where you have 0 content, but it's still not the same. You followed a story that got completed, but its ending got left as a cliffhanger in order for a sequel to be made. Now said sequel is nowhere to be seen. The next month would be January of 2015, where we would be given the news that the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire chapter would begin, adding more workload to the team. Months of silence would go by and July 2015 comes back around, marking 2 years since the series began. In this special month, we get preview pictures of the next volume. The community is hyped up at the thought the return could be upon us, but no release date is given yet. And that no release date hits really hard, as we managed to get all the way to September 2016 with no content whatsoever apart from preview images given again in May. Also in this month of September, the Auras chapter came to an end, so that at least gave the team a little bit more freedom. Though this little freedom doesn't really mean much when in a few months time, Pokémon Sun and Moon would be coming out, and we all know what that means. But hope returns once more, as on the 27th of September 2016, we get the news that the Black and White 2 arc will be returning to the magazine form. This time as part of Sunday Web Read, the digital magazine. After 3 years, the great hiatus comes to an end, with Black and White 2 returning to a monthly format. But as the title and thumbnail say, this is a 7-year story, so we still have a way to go. The manga consistently releases monthly for 7 months, but as we land in June 2017, the month's chapters get split in 2 parts, with 2 weeks between them. But not only that, the next chapter is going to have a 2-week delay as well. This is undeniably bad news, but as a nice gift for some, or a cruel image for others, we finally see Black once more inside the Lightstone, causing everyone to lose their minds. July rolls round, but as we already know, the chapter is meant to be delayed. However, this delay gets extended, so that the first half of the chapter comes out and the second half comes out the next month. To make matters even more concerning, author Hidenori Kusaka confirms he's been suffering from burnout after the 20th anniversary celebrations, which is what caused the delays. August is our next month, and the released chapters get compiled into the second volume of Black and White 2, in other words, volume 53. The next volume gets a preview and is confirmed to finally be the end of Black and White 2. On the bright side, in September, we see the great moment of White finding the Lightstone. We may have had some delays, but now we're out of the thick of things. Or at least, that's what I'd like to say. But for October, before the chapter is meant to be released, the manga returns to hiatus. This being dubbed the Winter Hiatus. Eventually, this hiatus comes to an end, only lasting 4 months, and giving us a longer 18-page chapter in return. However, if you're a fan at this time, you're not allowed to experience true happiness, as just after we escape the hiatus, we'd be going back into another one. This February chapter, known as Chapter 18, would be the last one for a good while. And it really sucks as well, as the story was actually starting to ramp up, with the return of N, the Swords of Justice, and many more cool stuff. But with how everything was lining up on the timeline, this hiatus would be dubbed the Cursed Hiatus. From when this arc started up till now, Pokémon XY, Auras, Sun and Moon, and Ultra Sun and Moon all came and went, with the Let's Go games being on the horizons. There had been tough times before in the past, but this time things were looking inescapable. And so nearly a whole year passes yet again. The Sun and Moon chapter had been doing its thing and would be ending guaranteed this year. All the other arcs had finished their magazine releases and were waiting for their volume releases. And during this 1-year time skip, we got the amazing news that the arc would finally be returning. The cursed hiatus was over and the story could finally finish up. The format being monthly, but with a chapter being split between 2 months, meaning the progress was slower than normal, but it was still progress nonetheless. This started in March 2019 with Chapter 19, which would begin and finish in April. This method would repeat itself all the way until November, where the final chapter, Chapter 23, would be split into Part 1 and 2 like usual, but these chapters would also be further split. It's kinda confusing to say, so I'll show you on screen what it was like. Fun fact, this Chapter 23 was the longest in Pokémon Adventure's history, being at 89 pages. Gotta thank Bulbapedia for that one. And so, in April 2020, whilst everyone was struggling with a certain pandemic, Pokémon Adventures Black and White 2 finally came to an end. After 7 grueling years, we got to see Black get released from the Lightstone, the Unova Dex holders all meeting up, Ghetsis and Team Plasma get defeated once more, and the region being saved once again. Well, at least until the volume release comes and makes some questionable choices with the ending. But that's not really the topic of today's video, since if we're being honest, during this time, the arc itself was kind of shaky in its story. The pacing was understandably screwed up, and the characters were kind of hit or miss, with some people actually only choosing to read the story just to see what happened with Black and the old characters. I made a poll on the Reddit asking for people's opinion on this arc, and it wasn't 100% positive. In the future, I'll definitely make a video talking about how this arc was handled. And of course, I can't blame the team, since there wasn't really anything they can do about it with all the games coming out and not enough time and manpower to adapt them. Eventually, 1 or 2 arcs were gonna have to take the fall, and in this case it was Pokemon Black and White 2, which took a very large fall. If you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe? I do a ton of Pokemon manga videos and we're really close to hitting 20k, so help would be appreciated. Also, I want to give credit to the sources that held most of the information for this video, since it would literally be impossible without them, so I'll be sure to link them all in the description. Also, let me know in the comment section down below on these history style videos, as they're pretty fun to do research on and to share with you all. With all that said and done, I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care.